So in this next video, we're going to check out some more historical discoveries. This is the 20 most amazing accidental historical discoveries. Let's check them out.
Not all historical discoveries were found intentionally. In fact, quite a lot of them were found by complete accident by lucky people. From a 900-year-old Crusader sword to a Roman villa, here are 20 most amazing accidental historical discoveries. Number 20. 900-year-old Crusader sword. If you're an avid diver, spotting oddities underwater would likely come naturally to you. For instance, if a clueless swimmer saw this long object covered with sediment and barnacles, they wouldn't think much of it. Shlomi Katzin, however, is quite different. As a seasoned diver, he noticed that this long object could be something important. He found it lying on the seabed off the Carmel coast in 2021. While he expected that it was something special, he never expected it to be a significant archaeological find. Upon pulling the object out of the ocean, he noticed that its other end was shaped eerily similar to a sword's handle. Spoiler alert, he was correct. The object, encrusted by sediment and a thick layer of barnacles, turned out to be a 900-year-old Crusader sword, and most likely belonged to a strong knight in the past. Over 4,000 years ago, during the Late Bronze Age, this ocean area was used as a temporary natural shelter for ships. With the discovery of this 900-year-old blade, it's highly likely that this area was also used by merchant ships in the Crusader period, making it a hotspot for the most incredible archaeological finds. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now. Number 19. An author's ring. Charlotte Bronte, born on April 21, 1816, was among the most renowned novelists, with her most famous work being Jane Eyre. Now, among the most significant things she left behind was a ring, and this ring wouldn't have been discovered if it wasn't for a lucky find. In 2019, a ring containing the hair of Charlotte Bronte was featured on national TV. The family who found the ring discovered it by chance while cleaning up their attic, and it was during this process that they found a locked box. Inside this box was a ring, which they initially believed was just another piece of antique jewelry. But upon observing the ring more closely, they discovered it contained the initials C. Bronte, and it also had a secret compartment containing a plaited lock of hair. It was this hair that connected the ring directly to Charlotte Bronte herself. Again, this discovery was made purely by chance when
This brings up an old question that I've had for a long time. You know how they say, like, you shouldn't wear certain clothing items or different things of dead people who have passed and gone along, right? Maybe say don't put your feet in a dead man's shoe or something like that. What about jewelry or a ring? Does that have anything attached to it that could possibly give bad energy, spirits, stuff like that? I always wondered that, but I never really heard people talk about that when it comes to jewelry. Like, for instance, this ring, if somebody put that ring on, could it, you know what I mean? Could it have some effects on you, or could it hold something that could pose some effects on you? It's just a thought.
the family decided to sort through a deceased relative's belongings. Now you're probably wondering why Charlotte would have had this accessory. In the Victorian era, it was a typical practice to keep this accessory, most especially to mourn a loved one. Through this ring, its wearer would have something to hold on to keep their deceased loved one close. Number 18. Ötzi the Iceman. These horrifying remains belong to Ötzi, one of the most well-preserved individuals we've ever discovered. In September 1991, a couple hiking in the Tyrolean Alps stumbled upon what they thought was a recent accident victim. Little did they know, they had just found the oldest natural European mummy, dating back around 5,300 years. This was how Ötzi came to be. Despite passing away thousands of years ago, Ötzi's body remained well preserved thanks to the freezing temperatures in the Alps. Subsequent analysis revealed interesting information about Ötzi's past. Ötzi turned out to be a Neolithic man who had been fatally shot in the back with an arrow back in the Copper Age. That's not the only suffering he endured in his lifetime, though. Studies showed he suffered from common ailments like arthritis and Lyme disease. Even though we can analyze what he ate in his last days, archaeologists believe that there's much left to discover about Ötzi and the harsh life he endured. Number 17. Edinburgh Vaults. Until the 1980s, much of Europe had forgotten the existence of storage spaces beneath the United Kingdom. You see, in the late 18th century, the Edinburgh Vaults, or the Vaults, were built beneath Edinburgh's South Bridge as storage spaces for the bustling businesses above them. These underground chambers, hidden from the street level, served various purposes over the years, from taverns and cobblers' workshops to smuggling. Despite their initial utility, the vaults gradually fell into disuse due to persistent issues like dampness and poor ventilation. And so, by the early 19th century, they were abandoned and forgotten. In the 1980s, however, Norrie Rowan, a businessman and ex-Scotland rugby international, stumbled upon a tunnel leading to them. It was through this tunnel that he helped Romanian rugby player Cristian Raducanu escape the secret police and seek political asylum before the Romanian Revolution of 1989. Over a decade after this, Norrie Rowan and his son Normal Rowan excavated the vaults. Ever since, Edinburgh has been part of conspiracy theories and paranormal stories. Much about these vaults remain a secret to this day.
So how far back does underground smuggling go? You never really hear them talk about it other than it pertains to Pablo Escobar or the cartel or something like that. But how far does that go back? We've been smuggling stuff for a long time, I see.
Number 16. Derinkuyu Underground City. Imagine fixing a wall in your basement when you suddenly discover that the other side is hollow. You think you have a DIY repair mastered until you notice that your house doesn't have an ordinary leak issue. Instead, you have an entire tunnel behind your home's wall. This is exactly what happened to a local in Derinkuyu, Turkey. The man was trying to renovate his home, but while knocking down a wall in his basement, he unearthed a passage that led to a hidden subterranean complex extending as deep as 18 stories into the earth. This was how the underground city of Derinkuyu was discovered. This underground city could house as many as 20,000 people, and it had everything a small community needed: kitchens, stables, chapels, sources of water, and even wineries. Derinkuyu is an extraordinary example of ancient engineering and architecture. The city was equipped with over 50 ventilation shafts to ensure fresh air circulation, illustrating the advanced understanding of construction and urban planning by its builders. Now, why would such an expansive settlement exist underground? Well, the origins of Derinkuyu are still a subject of debate among historians and archaeologists. However, it's generally believed that Derinkuyu was extensively developed during the early Christian period as a protective measure against invasions. The city's extensive defenses, including massive stone doors and narrow passageways, enabled its inhabitants to live securely underground during turbulent times. This underground settlement served its purpose well, until peaceful times came, and hiding wasn't necessary for people anymore. After that, Derinkuyu was abandoned. Number 15. Uluburun Shipwreck. In 1982, Mehmet, a local sponge diver, was trying to fulfill the day's quota off the southern coast of Turkey when he stumbled upon a shipwreck. Not just any shipwreck, but the historic Uluburun shipwreck. This Bronze Age shipwreck, dated to the late 14th century BCE, was one of the oldest and richest wrecks ever excavated. It was also the most valuable. After all, over 3,000 years ago, this shipwreck carried...
So it's also the most valuable, which brings up my next question. Are you obligated to report a shipwreck that you found? Say, for instance, you stumble across a shipwreck full of treasures and gold. Are you obligated? I don't think you are. I don't know. But that's something I want to look at. It ain't like I'm going to be swimming around, but that's something I've thought about. Like, you know what I mean? Because here come everybody wanting a piece of something that you worked hard to find. Government, taxes. No, that's my find.
Copper and tin ingots, glass beads, ivory, gold, and exotic items from as far away as Africa and Afghanistan. When it sank, it brought its valuable cargo along with it. With these findings, however, we can learn more about the ancient trade systems and the trade networks of the late Bronze Age. Number 14. Venus de Milo. On April 8, 1820, on the Greek island of Milos, a local farmer by the name of Yorgos Kentrotis was searching for antiquities purely just for the fun of it and to pass the time. He wasn't expecting to find much, but it was then that fate rewarded him with a great find. a statue that he believed to be depicting Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love and beauty. The significance of this find quickly attracted attention when Olivier Vautier, a French naval officer interested in archaeology, happened to be on site. He immediately recognized the importance of the sculpture, and Vautier played a crucial role in documenting the discovery and advocating for its preservation. The French ambassador to the Ottoman Empire, Charles-François de Rifaudou, Marquis de Rivière, was informed, and he promptly acquired the statue for France. By 1821, the Venus de Milo was proudly installed in the Louvre Museum and has remained among the most renowned ancient artworks to this day. However, there's still much mystery surrounding this sculpture. You see, it's still unknown just where the arms of Venus ended up. Number 13. 14,000-year-old mammoth remains. In 2016, workers about 20 miles north of Mexico City were digging to install a drainage pipe near a village when they found bones. Not just ordinary bones, but massive ones. Their size was so impressive that they immediately realized they might have found something significant. Archaeologists immediately took over the site, carefully excavating the remains of a 10-ton mammoth skull.
Yep, cha-ching. That's all I was waiting to hear if they said mammoth. Those things are worth money. Somebody just made a lot of money.
Further investigation revealed that the well-preserved skull belonged to a Colombian mammoth, a big one with a head measuring over a staggering 6 feet. What's astounding about this 14,000-year-old skull is the well-preserved tusks it still had. The rest of its skull, however, had been damaged, and bone fragments were also found near it. This means that 14,000 years ago, some of our predecessors most likely cut and consumed parts of this animal. Even so, this mammoth was most likely between 20 and 25 years old when it perished, suggesting it still lived a long life. Number 12. Rosetta Stone. Today, the Rosetta Stone is among the most significant archaeological discoveries ever. After all, this stele of granite diorite led to experts finally deciphering the hieroglyphic script. Before the Rosetta Stone, Egyptian hieroglyphics were impossible for experts to decode because of the lack of reference. The Rosetta Stone, containing 3 versions of a decree written in ancient Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphic, made it easier for experts to finally unlock the secrets of hieroglyphics. But did you know that the Rosetta Stone was almost lost? You see, it almost became a random slab with no significance, but luckily it was rediscovered. In fact, it almost permanently became a slab meant to support a wall. The Rosetta Stone was first discovered in 1799 when it emerged from the sands near the town of Rosetta in the Nile Delta. It was accidentally found by French soldiers under Napoleon during the French campaign in Egypt. Luckily, Lieutenant Pierre-François Bouchard noticed the inscriptions on the slab and reported it. This eventually led to the Rosetta Stone finally getting the recognition it deserved. After the British defeated the French, the Rosetta Stone was moved to the British Museum in 1802, where it remains one of the most visited exhibits. If it weren't for this slab, it would have probably taken us longer to decipher hieroglyphics. There's also a chance that we wouldn't even have deciphered it to this day without this stele. Number 11. 200-million-year-old dinosaur bone found in rubble. In August 2021, Mark McMenamin, a professor of geology at Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts, was strolling the university grounds with his wife. Upon seeing construction work at the time, McMenamin's wife Diana asked the workers if she could take some rocks home with her for her garden. After receiving an affirmative, McMenamin helped his wife to gather about 20 rounded stones. One particular stone, however, had a bizarre texture. As a geology professor, McMenamin immediately noticed that it looked more like a fossil than an ordinary stone. The professor immediately tested the 12.3 diameter specimen and found something astonishing. It was a fossil. It was the elbow bone of a predatory dinosaur that was one of the largest land neotheropods during the early Jurassic. With a length of up to 30 feet, it would have been among the largest predatory dinosaurs that roamed our planet from 201.3 to 1.
And again, it looks like a rock. So if I'm walking around outside and I stumble across that, I might throw it in the lake trying to skip it, thinking I got a rock and I'm trying to skip a rock. Like, that looks so much, it's like a regular rock. Bigger than normal, but
145 million years ago. McMenamin's short and leisurely stroll with his wife, turning into the find of a lifetime, is one for the books. Number 10. Terracotta Army. In 1974, local farmers were digging a well when they stumbled upon a statue, then another, and another. This was how the Terracotta Army was accidentally discovered. These life-sized and intricately detailed soldiers, horses, and chariots were arranged in battle formation to protect the closed tomb of the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang's Terracotta Army. The site comprises an extensive underground necropolis built to accompany the emperor into the afterlife. Subsequent excavation revealed the expansive area of the emperor's tomb. You see, these terracotta warriors are so astounding that no two of them have the same features. Each displays unique facial expressions and features, hairstyles, and even armor styles. While much has been excavated and studied, the main burial chamber of Emperor Qin Shi Huang himself remains unexplored. This was due to the incredibly hazardous mercury levels detected around the emperor's tomb. The possibility of damaging the tomb also deters archaeologists from trying to open it. Nevertheless, the site continues to be among the greatest archaeological discoveries of all time. Number 9. Giant millipede fossil. We've all probably seen a millipede. They're tiny, and a single step would end their lives. But these creatures weren't always this tiny. In 2018, a section of a cliff fell onto the shore at Northumberland Beach in Howick. This incident revealed the fossil of a giant millipede. Millipedes today measure a maximum of 11 inches, but this particular fossil belonged to a millipede that measured 8 feet. Yes, feet. When this creature was still alive, it weighed a staggering 8.
Just everything was just huge back then. Why? Why? You know it's bad when a millipede, 8 feet, or centipede, or whatever it is, 8 feet? Come on, bro.
Stone. It's quite impossible to imagine, right? These massive creepy crawlies lived 326 million years ago when the northeast of England had a warmer and more tropical climate, making it easier for these creatures to thrive. Aside from its size, this millipede also differs from modern ones in the number of their legs. Rather than having 1,000, this massive behemoth most likely only had 32. Well, that doesn't make it less terrifying. Number 8. Lascaux cave paintings. In the quaint village of Montignac, France, a seemingly ordinary day in September 1940 led to an extraordinary discovery. The story goes that 18-year-old Marcel Rabidat was exploring an uprooted tree when his dog, Robot, found a hole they initially believed was left by an uprooted tree. Later, Rabidat invited his 3 friends to explore with him and discovered a cave through a 50-foot shaft, which they initially thought was the secret passage to the nearby Lascaux manor. Some versions, however, claimed that Rabidat's dog fell into the hole leading to the cavern. Regardless, the conclusion is the same. This exploration led to the discovery of the Lascaux cave and its paintings, which were preserved and sealed for over 17,000 years. This cave contains over 600 images of animals like deer, bulls, and horses, painted with such detail and movement that they seem to leap off the walls. What's astounding is that these images were crafted using mineral pigments and sometimes applied with tools as simple as moss, hair, or even blowing color directly onto the rock. Despite their historical value, the Lascaux cave paintings face threats from fungal and microbial growth due to increased exposure to outside air and the carbon dioxide produced by thousands of visitors. This led to the closure of the caves to the public in 1963 to preserve the artwork. Replicas like Lascaux II and later Lascaux IV have been created to allow the public to experience the beauty and significance of these prehistoric masterpieces without damaging the originals. Has anyone out there seen the replicas? If so, please share your experience in the comments down below. Number 7. Pompeii. Nestled in the shadow of Mount Vesuvius, Pompeii was a bustling Roman city until it was abruptly buried under volcanic ash in 79 CE. It was left forgotten until the 16th century, thanks to construction projects. In 1599, architect Domenico Fontana became part of a project digging an underground channel to divert water under Naples. It was then that the remains of Pompeii were revealed to the world. However, it wasn't until 1748, over 2 centuries later, that excavation efforts began. That year, explorers looking for ancient artifacts under the patronage of Charles of Bourbon, the King of Naples, began systematic excavations. Unfortunately, the methods of the excavation at the time caused damage. Amateur treasure hunters and untrained workers also became part of the massive site's excavation, leading to irreparable damage to some of the artifacts. In 1860, Giuseppe Fiorelli finally took charge of the excavations, and everything finally fell into place. Fiorelli introduced a methodical approach, dividing Pompeii into 9 regions for systematic documentation and preservation. He's also famed for developing the technique of creating plaster casts of the voids left by the decomposed bodies, giving us a haunting window into the last moments of Pompeii's inhabitants. Number 6. The Stone Spheres of Costa Rica. In the 1930s, the United Fruit Company branch arrived in Costa Rica. At the time, much of the area was occupied by dense vegetation. Intending to convert it into a plantation, workers cleared and surveyed the area. Now imagine their surprise when they stumbled upon massive stone spheres that seemed to have been made by the region's early settlers. This was how the stone spheres of Costa Rica were discovered, and still haven't left the public's fascination to this day. The spheres range in size, some small enough to be held in one's hands, while others are up to 6.6 feet in diameter and weigh up to 15 tons. Made from granodiorite, a hard igneous stone, these giant orbs are thought to have been crafted by the people who lived in the area in ancient times. To this day, however, we're quite unsure how they were created and why. You see, despite extensive studies, the exact purpose of these spheres remains a mystery. Some believe they were merely used for aesthetic purposes, just as we have statues and fountains. But some thought that they were used for astronomical purposes. Despite the uncertainty surrounding these sculptures, one thing is certain: these stone spheres are significant pieces of history that remain in the area. Today, the location where these spheres are found is considered a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a recognition that aims to protect and preserve them for future generations. Number 5. Chinese Mummy. In 1971, a remarkable discovery was made near Changsha, China, when workers accidentally unearthed the tomb of Xin Jui, also known as Lady Dai. Many seem to have the wrong notion that the most well-preserved mummy is in Egypt, but the reality is that Lady Dai is the most well-preserved mummy ever found. The workers who found Lady Dai were constructing an air raid shelter when they found her remains. After her body was found, what followed next was an examination to get all the information from her remains. Based on data collected from Lady Dai's mummified remains, she was a noblewoman from the Western Han Dynasty who lived around 2,100 years ago. She was the wife of Li Kang, the Marquis of Dai, which meant that she lived in luxury. In fact, her tomb was filled with over 1,000 artifacts, including luxurious items such as jewelry, silk garments, and a wide array of household goods that indicated her high social status and affluent lifestyle. Thanks to Lady Dai's well-preserved remains, experts could learn more about the era she lived in. Number 4. The Lyceum.
You know, they made sure she had everything she needed to transition to the afterlife. Over 1,000 items in there. Like, sheesh, she took a lot.
Aristotle, a great philosopher that continues to be studied, revered, and remembered to this day. One of the greatest places linked to this brilliant mind is the Lyceum. This is where the great philosopher founded his school upon his return to Athens in 335 BC. The Lyceum was one of the most sought-after locations, and yet it was discovered by complete accident. This historical gem was unearthed quite unexpectedly during what was supposed to be the construction of the Golandris Contemporary Art Museum. Construction in the area immediately halted, and archaeologists took over. After all, the site is unique because it marks the very location where Aristotle, after parting ways with his teacher Plato, set up his own school and laid down the foundations of his teachings that would influence Western thought for centuries to come. The methods of inductive and deductive reasoning developed here were revolutionary at the time and set the stage for what would later be recognized as the scientific method. Later on, the area was transformed into a part park, part historical site, integrating it into the fabric of modern Athens while preserving its ancient roots. Visitors can now walk through the same spaces where ancient philosophers once pondered the mysteries of the universe. Number 3. The Cave of Altamira. In 1879, amateur archaeologist Marcelino Sanz de Sautuola strolled through Lisbon when his 8-year-old daughter stumbled upon bizarre drawings in a cave. It was largely brushed off until its excavation 2 years later, led by Sautuola himself, with the help of another archaeologist named Juan Villanova y Piera from the University of Madrid. The cave was officially introduced as a chamber containing paintings from the Paleolithic era.
You see all that red clay they use to paint in certain areas? What if they're painting like things they've seen as like horrific incidents, battles, people being sacrificed, whatever? What if that's what they're painting? Because when I see like the red areas, I think blood. I think that. And I was like, I wonder if that's it. Some of the stuff that they're doing, just trying to get it out their head.
Now, usually, this type of discovery would have had positive feedback from experts and the public. But two French specialists, namely Gabriel de Mortier and Émile Cartiac, adamantly claimed the assertions about the cave were untrue. As a result, both Saltuola and Cartilac were ridiculed not only in front of the public, but also in front of other experts at the 1880 Prehistorical Congress in Lisbon. But that's not the end of it. Aside from being called a fraud, he was also accused of forgery. Many believed that he hired someone to draw the alleged ancient paintings, which would explain their quality and the fact that there are no traces of soot in the entire cave. This further cemented the fact that Saltuola presented a faked archaeological discovery. It wasn't until 1902 that several findings changed opinion toward Saltuola and the Altamira cave. First, it was discovered that if marrow fat were used as oil for a lamp, it would produce less soot. More people began to examine the cave, and it was concluded that the Cave of Altamira was indeed a historical site. This 3,300-foot-long chamber has a series of twisting passages and hidden sections. Throughout it are paintings.
I was hoping nobody went through all of that just for it to be a fake. Like, I was about to get upset.
Of local flora and fauna that were most likely created during the Upper Paleolithic period around 36,000 years ago. The sad part? 1902 was 14 years after Saltuola's death. This means that he never got to witness people believing in his incredible discovery, nor did he experience the recognition he deserved. Number 2. Graves of medieval Slavic chieftains. This is by far the most impressive archaeological find I've ever seen, not only because of its archaeological value, but also because of how it was found. In 2013, a gravesite that dates back to the medieval era was discovered in Germany, and it's all thanks to a badger. Yes, you heard that right, a badger. These animals have a penchant for digging using their short legs. It just so happened that one particular badger made its home on a farm in the town of Stolpa in Brandenburg, some 47 miles northeast of Berlin. Two hobby archaeologists, Lars Wilhelm and Hendrika Ring, set up their exhibit near the farm, specifically near the badger's burrow. While surveying the site, the two noticed something bizarre. There was a pelvic bone that was dug out by the badger. Along this suspicious bone were pieces of jewelry that the two hobby archaeologists promptly surrendered to the authorities. This chance encounter led to the site's excavation, which turned out to be the ancient graves from the 12th century. Among the graves were two containing Slavic chieftains. This site turned out to be quite significant, also revealing the graves of two Slavic warlords, among others. Their incredibly well-preserved skeletons showed signs of the harsh life they led, with multiple sword and lance marks. Further excavation of the site also revealed bronze bowls and an intricate belt buckle in the shape of the Greek letter omega. Another well-preserved skeleton discovered on the site belonged to a woman with a coin found in her mouth, suggesting that she was of high social stature back when she was still alive. And the coin? Well, it was most likely placed in her mouth as a toll. You see, in the local culture, people are welcomed into the afterlife by a ferryman who would row them to the other side of the Styx. Now, if it weren't for one hard-working badger, we wouldn't have been able to see this archaeological discovery. And now it's time.
Can you imagine trying to get into the afterlife, getting right there and realizing you don't have the money to pay the toll to get in? Like, wouldn't that be devastating? Just thought.
For today's topic. In China, construction workers stumbled upon horse remains in an empty lot. Now, this wasn't anything that could be considered unique until they discovered the remains of a chariot alongside it. This is now known as one of the most amazing accidental historical discoveries. The level of preservation of the horse remains and the chariot was incredibly astounding. Archaeologists believe that in time, This discovery will yield unprecedented information about ancient China. For now, however, we can only excavate the site properly without damaging it. What secrets do you think this discovery will reveal? Number 1. A Roman villa. There's a general notion that doom scrolling on the internet and letting ourselves get sucked into a rabbit hole is unproductive, at least most of the time. While it's true that scrolling the internet, jumping from one obscure topic to another is unproductive, this archaeologist thinks otherwise. After all, it was with the help of the internet that he discovered this astonishing historical find. In 2022, an archaeologist used Google Earth and noticed the bizarre crop markings and linear features on a farmer's plot of land. Curiosity took over, and it turned out that his hunch was correct. Upon excavating the site, archaeologists immediately discovered the remains of a 1,700-year-old Roman villa complex. The site included a magnificent mosaic damaged by fire. In fact, the villa also had a Roman central heating system and a bathhouse. It was preserved just enough for researchers to examine its features, but nevertheless, it was an astounding find. An amphora-shaped belt was also found in the remains of the once opulent villa. It was believed that the villa dates back to the 3rd or 4th century CE, making it a historically significant site for the region.